So we all want to make absolutely as much money as possible when driving for DoorDash, but there's a lot of different strategies. What happens if there's no bonus pay at all? Or what happens if there's some, or what happens if there's a lot? How can you capitalize that to make as much money as possible? Well, in this video, we're going to go over a recent shift where Matt here drove on DoorDash and made some pretty good money, and he drove on all of those 3 different scenarios. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike. This is Matt. This channel is dedicated to your success in this gig economy, the side hustle. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. And make sure to get the very best accessories for any niche in this gig economy. Check out my Amazon storefront, that linked down below. So I think this is going to be a fantastic video. If you're watching this is going to help you out a lot as a driver. And I say that because this shift, you had no peak pay, no bonus pay, and then you had, again, a good amount and then a pretty good peak pay. So for example, this first order to really start the shift here from Panera Bread, it was $6, 1.9 miles, but there was 0 bonus pay. So tell us your strategy specifically on this one when there was no bonus pay. So not always will you have that perfect time to go online. Maybe you only have a few hours. So how do you make the most money when it's 2:30, as in this case, or it's one of those random times during the day or even on the weekend? And this is how you do it. You surround yourself with those power strips. And the power strips on this channel are those groups of roads, that power strip of road with a whole bunch of restaurants. So even though it's the slower time, there's more chances that you're gonna get a delivery request. So in this case, you're not always going to get those $10 orders. I promise you, you will see that during the busy times. But these little orders, $6, $7, they add up quick. And I think the thing about that is, yes, it was $6, but like you mentioned, because you were in a busy zone, so you could really pick and choose smartly the best order for you. But it was $6, but you only had to drive 1.9 miles. So there's a strong dollars to mile ratio. How much am I getting paid for the miles driven? So another similar order here, this one for Roots Natural Kitchen, it's another $6 order. Again, there's 0 bonus pay here. This was just shortly after that Panera order. So really for these odd times, these late lunch, in between busy time shifts, what's the strategy here? So while there may not seem like there's a strategy, well, I'll just get whatever I get. Actually, there is a really specific strategy that you need to follow if you want to make the most of your time. And that is, again, being around those focused areas. So think about it. If your town or your area of the city has 1 or 2 restaurants and you're really hoping to get that one Chipotle order, you're going to be waiting for a long, long time. So think about if it makes sense, driving 5 minutes or however long, not too long, not 20 minutes, but maybe a few minutes down the road around all of the restaurants so you can minimize your driving time. That's a really big tip. You want to take the shortest ride you possibly can, because it's not like you're driving for $12 or $15 or $19, which we have definitely seen. These shorter rides, the little $6, $7 rides, keep the mileage low. Because yes, there is no bonus. So if there's no bonus, well, firstly, you have to look at the minimum pay. Because I mean, DoorDash or really any of these food delivery apps, they're gonna pay you a certain minimum, let's say $6 or $7. So go for those ones, not the $3, not the $4 orders. And then again, it comes down to the miles. And then later on, as we'll see here, once we get the bonuses, some higher pay, then we have a little bit more leeway. And another great example of that last point. So maybe no bonuses, focus on miles. So we're seeing a, let's say, lower payout than we typically want, you know, a $7, $10+ order. This one is $6 for Kung Fu Tea, but again, look at the miles, just 0.5 miles. Now this one, still on 0 peak pay, no bonuses here, Quiznos subs, $8. This is 5 miles. So it is a little bit longer as far as the miles. Why would you accept this one? So you might see a repeat trend here. If you've watched the channel, or even if you're new, welcome. But these areas of the city, the Squirrel Hills, the Oakland, and what that means to us, those are the power strip areas. So I was ending the ride in a really good area to get my next request, and simply that's why I took this one. So here we're actually a little bit south of that popular Squirrel Hill area that Matt just mentioned. But now we're later in the day, really later afternoon. So because of that, we're seeing some demand increase. And because of that, we're seeing some peak pay, some bonuses. In this case, a $2 peak pay for this order, $6.60 for 3.3 miles. So now the strategy is shifting from solely looking at really the shortest miles so you can keep those, smaller orders going to maybe getting some of this peak pay that we're seeing here. So what do you typically do whenever you start seeing your shift pick up? Maybe you're seeing some peak pay because now we're seeing a $2 peak pay. How does your strategy shift when it starts to get busier? So actually the things that do not change, surprisingly enough, is your strategy. You're gonna have exactly the same strategy, but now more choices. So you wanna be really careful with the rides that you do request, because now if I'm getting a $5 order, well, I know that I'm probably going to get a better order if I go ahead and decline that order and wait for the next one. But you're gonna have to double down on your customer service, because now you might need 2 food saver bags because you're getting a larger order. So don't forget the customer service part of things, because that's gonna drive your ratings, that's gonna drive your tips, and it's a really, really good strategy. Well, that's a good point. You mentioned 2 things there. So the strategy it's always good customer service. It's always choosing the best orders for you. But now you can be more picky, because we got this order, it's $6.60. It's not a crazy payout, but you can start to get more picky as it's getting busier, because frankly, if it's busier, you're gonna get more order requests. But also be prepared for the other side of the coin, like you mentioned. If it's busier, you may get those larger dinner orders. So be prepared. Again, visit that Amazon storefront, get the right amount of bags, pizza bags, catering bags, etc., so you're prepared on that end. So I always say a great example and really proof that it's busy in that market segment where you're at is getting stacked orders. Now this is part of another order, a stacked order, this time for Sushi Fuku, $8 for just really ideally 715 feet. So do you do anything to encourage stacked orders? Because what I always try to do is, yes, the power strips and waiting by areas generally with a lot of restaurants, but have you found areas, maybe in that Squirrel Hill or the Oakland area, where you can really get more stacked orders? Can we go a little bit deeper on that? Yeah, so it's really specific to your city, but from my experience, it's strange enough, I've had so many stacked orders for pizza places. Now, that doesn't mean change your entire strategy and just camp outside of pizza places. However, if you're picking up an order, let's say you see a restaurant and the amount is really, really good and you decide to take it. Well, if you know that there's pizza places around there, well, I've seen it time and time again that I've been getting stacked orders from pizza places. Outside of that, there's just randomized times that you get stacked orders. The key, again, is to just be around those busy areas. I know we sound like a broken record, but it's really a strategy of just being in the right place at the right time. Here's another example, just something that I want you to be aware of how your stacked orders may look. Now, this is actually a stacked order, but it's one screen. We can see here, of course, it says 2 orders. This one for KFC, $14.50. I want to make a note about that. Make sure you're paying attention that it is a stacked order. So, of course, you're going to have to divide this pay in 2 because you're going to be making 2 stops. So just something to consider. So later in the evening here, as we're wrapping up, really in the heart of this dinner rush, this one for Silk Elephant, a $10 payout. So I do want to ask you, as it's getting busier, and actually in this circumstance here, we have even higher peak pay. We started with a 0, and then we saw a $2 peak pay. Well, this one is under a $3 peak pay. So what do you do in these circumstances? You're seeing really demand max out. Do you do anything there on the height of these dinner rush? So I'm gonna borrow an experience from 2015 whenever Mike and I, were driving rideshare with Uber. So consider this, it's 2 a.m. and the bars are letting out and there are a ton of people downtown needing a ride. Well, we would not accept anything that didn't have a 3 times or 4 times surge. So compare that to what you're doing now, food delivery with DoorDash. At a busy time, you've strategized, you've used the power strips, you're in that area where all the restaurants are and it's peak pay. Well, you're not gonna accept anything that's under $10, ideally, if you can get it. But typically, if you're in that area and you've listened to the strategies, you're gonna get a really, really large order and accept nothing less. I absolutely agree with that. And here's a power tip for you. If there was, let's say, 0 peak pay, like we saw in the start of this shift here, we accepted somewhat $6, $6.50, maybe $7 orders. My minimum for you is around $7. That's what I want you to look to accept. Now, as we get in the demand periods, as we see the peak pay, I would bump your minimum that you're going to be looking at to maybe 8, 9. Like Matt mentioned, $10 is really where I like to be. bump it up to a $10 minimum payout. And if you're seeing it being exceptionally busy, maybe a $3, a $4 peak pay, you may be able to bump that up to $11 or $12 minimum. Now, obviously be smart with the miles. I mean, a $12 payout on a 13-mile order kind of negates the 12 miles there, but something to consider. So a shift with $0 of peak pay and really moving up to $2 and $3 peak pay here on a Saturday. Let's go over the numbers and find out how much Matt made. This shift from 2:15 p.m. until 7:15 p.m., 5 hours totaled a gross revenue of $116.10. During this time, Matt earned $23.22 per hour. And nicely completing 14 deliveries, really showing how busy he was during this shift, and received 14 tips as well, with a nice tip average, $3.65. Really one of the key metrics that I want you to improve on in 2021. That's keeping your business miles short, being smart with your driving, minimizing your business miles, which maximizes your margin. Matt drove 48.9 miles. And that equals a payout of $2.37 per mile. And for that driving, Matt gets a tax deduction of $27.38. So if you got value in this video, definitely consider dropping a like. And you can also click or tap the screen here for my most recent video, as well as a video recommended for you. And I'll see you in the next one.